Michel, is this your workout?
Yes, sort of. I'm not happy with my arms. Feels like they're out of form. That's why I exercise. I need to build my muscles, gain some strength, power the body.
Power was one of your major topics, wasn't it?
Not a terribly smooth transition there.
I agree.
Well, but true. It was one of my crucial interests. And yes, there is a connection between power, capital P, and exercising.
What do you mean?
Well, without being exercise, there simply is no power. Let me backtrack a little. First of all, by power, I do not mean power as a group of institutions and mechanisms that ensure the subservience of the citizens of a given state. By power, I do not mean either a mode of subjugation which, in contrast to violence, has the form of the rule.
Okay, so what's the point?
I suggest that power should be understood as, and I quote, the multiplicity of force relations immanent in the sphere in which they operate and which constitute their own organization as the process which, through ceaseless struggles and confrontations, transforms, strengthens, or reverses them, as the support which these force relations find in one another, thus forming a chain or a system. End of quote. So you see, my primary interest is not in the political or sociological notion of state power. My focus is on power as an everyday practice, and as such, it is very much tied to being exercised by you, by me, by every one of us.
So, according to you, power is more a relation than a thing? It needs to be operated, activated, and sustained, just like a muscle, if you accept me coming back to this. Because I do see connections between physical education and power relations.
There are some obvious links. In Discipline and Punish, I studied the practices by which human bodies are turned into docile and useful bodies. Bodies that could be applied and controlled in factories, armies, schools, and similar institutions. In my perspective, the body is, and I quote again, directly involved in a political field. Power relations have an immediate hold upon it. They invest it, mark it, train it, torture it, force it to carry out tasks, to perform ceremonies, to emit signs. I think we talked about this before, so let me be clear on this point. It is largely as a force of production that the body is invested with relations of power and domination. The body becomes a useful force only if it is both a productive body and a subjected body.
You are alluding here to the conversation we had about the fact that in Discipline and Punish, you sometimes refer to Marx.
Exactly. And I also told you that hardly anybody was interested in this line of argument, so I moved on to other things. This also had an impact on my notion of power. In the first volume of History of Sexuality, I broadened my understanding of disciplinary power into something that I started to call biopower. The disciplines that trained and controlled the body emerged in the 17th century. In contrast, biopower is a more recent phenomenon. It only surfaced in the late 18th century. However, both forms continue to exist. They are still with us today. Now, the ultimate threat implied in the power regimes of early modern societies was to kill their individuals. With the advent of new biopower regimes in the late 18th century, this changed significantly. The ultimate goal of biopower is to organize and manage life in an entire population. And this, in turn, requires to get under the skin of the people, as it were. Biopower needs to be exercised through and in the bodies, which brings us back to where we started, since the desire to build your biceps can be seen as contributing to the functioning of today's biopower.
Really? Then let me see your biceps.
That's none of your business. The crucial point is that power is not simply repressive, but acts through and by creating our bodies, making them up, turning them inside out, and transforming them into the body of society.
Then why are you exercising with a dumbbell?
Well, as I said, I don't like the foam in my arms. And I also keep wondering about the notion of puppet power. Perhaps an increase in puppet strength will be providing some clues.
I see. Good luck then, and bye-bye.